Robbie, a singer, and Julia, a waitress, are both engaged but to the wrong people. Fortune intervenes to help them discover each other.
This is Ryan.
And this is Ashley.
And this is
Ruining Our Childhood. We did it right.
Yeah. A weekly podcast where we remove our childhood goggles and put on our adult bifocals to rewatch and review our favorite movies from the past.
That is correct. And if this is your first time joining us, hi, hello, welcome. My name's Ashley.
This is Ryan. Hello as well.
We already said that, so
Yes.
Pay attention.
Yeah. Hey, there's going to be a quiz after this.
Yeah, there's a quiz.
Yeah.
Go to our Facebook page, there will be a quiz.
Yes.
There won't be a quiz.
We're just trying to get likes on our Facebook page.
Yeah, you should totally do that.
Yeah.
Also, I am going to put up a poll
Yes.
to vote for our next movie, so you should definitely check that out. Especially if you're like looking at our podcast and going, I like the idea of their podcast, but I don't like any of the movies they choose. Because that's
This
how
is
you
your
talk.
chance.
Yeah.
This is your chance to
This is your
use
chance.
your voice.
Yeah, use your voice. Don't vote in an election.
Yeah.
Vote for our movie.
Rock this vote.
That was horrible. Do they
Lame.
still do that?
I think MTV does.
Okay.
That's still a thing, right?
Yeah, I feel like we're out of their demographic now, so I have no
yeah.
clue.
No, I'm out of it.
Yeah.
18 to 24. This guy's 34.
Old.
Old as dirt.
Okay, anyway, let's get back on track. This week we are doing The Wedding Singer.
Correct.
It's a 1998.
classic.
Forgot to look at the year.
Yes, it's
Classic,
1998.
starring Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore. Go ahead and hit us with some 1998 facts, Ryan.
The movie was released on February 13th of 1998. It had a budget of $18 million. It made $80 million in the United States and grossed $123 million worldwide. It was basically Adam Sandler's first hit movie.
Oh,
Facts about 1998. The biggest TV shows were ER, Friends, Frasier, and Monday Night Football. And popular songs. We got Savage Garden, Truly, Madly, Deeply.
oh man.
Usher, Nice and Slow. Will Smith, Getting Jiggy With It. And we'll go with Casey and JoJo, All My Life.
Oh, that was, one of those songs that they played in school dances, and you're just like, now I have to awkwardly dance with this
Yeah.
boy I kind of
We're
like.
going to stand about 2 feet apart.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing. So, The Wedding Singer, what are some of your earliest memories of this Adam Sandler classic? And I can't talk.
I remember seeing this in theaters.
Uh-huh.
I saw it with my friend Daniel, which that's the nice romantic comedy that you should go see with your buddy.
Sure.
I would say it was like my first, like, Adam Sandler's the greatest thing ever. Like, I liked Happy Gilmore, and I liked even some of the other ones like he did, like Billy Madison. But this was like, after this movie, I would say I saw all of his movies for about the next 10 years in theaters.
That's very true.
And the other thing I remember was how amazing the soundtrack was. Like,
Yes.
They even made 2 volumes of the soundtrack because it was so popular.
That's how you know it's good.
Yeah, which was basically just a gigantic mixtape.
Yeah, of 80s songs.
Yeah, so I loved the movie. I really, really enjoyed it. It was super good. What are your earliest memories, Ashley?
I didn't see this in theaters
Oh.
because I was only like 12 and honestly, it probably didn't interest me that much. Also, I didn't really go to the movies that often when I was younger because I did live in a small town. It took a little while to get to a movie theater. But I do remember renting it. And I also obviously loved pretty much every Adam Sandler movie. My favorite when I was a kid was Billy Madison. So I think obviously this was one that was in the stretch of probably like 5 movies that were really good of his.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people joke around now that he's not funny anymore and all this stuff, but you can't deny that his movies were funny at one point. And I want to say they're still funny. I mean, I guess that's the whole point of this podcast is to see how funny this one's going to hold up because we haven't seen it in a while. But I would like to say that it would. If we want to just go into that, I think it will hold up. Mostly because it is set in the 80s. And so it will be like this, almost like a period piece.
Yeah. And
It's
they're
kind of
making
funny to say.
they're making fun of the 80s the whole time. Like, it's not like they're trying to be like, hey, we have big hair because we think big hair is cool. Like, no, we're set in the 80s. This is the stuff that was popular.
Right. I do think there will be things that age it as far as some jokes, or some, I guess we could call them Adam Sandler isms.
Yeah.
That now we have gotten to the point where some of that stuff is really cliche, or, some of the things he does is just like, okay, we get it. I think every comedian goes through that, or comedic actor, even like Jim Carrey, like there's things that they do over and over again and people are like, okay, we get it, that's your thing.
Yeah.
Like that's your shtick. But
and honestly, I can say, like, I like you said, he had a string of like probably 5 or 6 years there where everything he did was a massive success.
Right.
And he was making a ton of money. I can honestly say I don't know the last time I saw one of his movies. I know I have not seen any of the ones that he's done for Netflix.
Yeah, we haven't.
And I know he actually just has one coming out right now with Jennifer Aniston, which I did really enjoy the last one he did with Jennifer Aniston, so maybe I'll check it out.
I think that was like the last one that I actually really liked. I know I watched the other one he did with Drew Barrymore, Blended. I watched it without you.
Yeah, I never saw it.
And it wasn't great. Yeah. But they have good chemistry. Yeah. And I think that's what's going to hold up this movie. That's what's going to make it still good, is their chemistry. And
no, I agree
obviously it works because they've done several movies together. And I remember, I think like a couple months ago, she said she'd definitely do another one with him because they're like BFFs. So
yeah.
So do you...
I kind of go back and forth, and I'm like, because I don't know that I really find him as funny as I used to.
Yeah.
But I agree with you that this one here, I think, will stand the test of time. I don't know about everything else he did in that time period, but I think this one will, and I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, this is probably I'm not going to say probably, this is without a doubt my favorite one of his movies. I also don't know the last time I watched it. It's been a long time.
It has been a long time. I want to say we watched it together, at least when we started dating. There was a period of time when me and Ryan started dating that's pretty much all we did was watch movies. Either go to the movies, or we would like go to each other's houses and watch a movie.
That's true.
So...
because we're nerds, and we're movie nerds.
Yeah, we're movie nerds. That's how we bonded. So we're going to go ahead into pause, but first I am going to let you know that you can find The Wedding Singer on all of the renting platforms like Vudu, iTunes, YouTube, Amazon Prime. I do see that it is on Cinemax.
Really?
Yeah, if you have, like, they have their own little streaming service like called Max Go.
Oh. Like
I
HBO
don't
Go.
think it is. Yeah. I don't think it is on anything else like Netflix or what's that other one?
Hulu. And then
Crackle. I'm just gonna say
Crackle. There's
that's
one.
still a thing.
Yes, yeah, sure.
So we'll go ahead
and hit the
pause. And then we're gonna come back and talk about The Wedding Singer.
For sure.
Bye.
Bye. And we're back. We just finished watching The Wedding Singer, and now we're going to go ahead and hook up that brand new $700 CD player and talk about some technology.
Yes. And $700 is insane to me, but...
Oh my God. But that's what probably the going rate was, because back then you would get the CD player, and I'm sure it was probably speakers and everything. But although I will say he did walk in with like a rather small box.
Right,
for
I
it.
think that was maybe not so accurate to the time, because I remember my dad's CD player that we still had up until like they moved, like we moved them out of their house recently, like the last like 4 years, and they still had that thing, and that was like the first CD player my dad ever bought in the 80s. It was huge,
but also very good quality, because stuck around until well into the 2000s.
I think things were made better back in the day.
Oh yeah, well, and also like it was probably Sony or like a legit brand, whereas like nowadays you're buying like, you can go into like Walmart back in like the early 2000s and buy a CD player for like $20.
Yeah,
everybody could make them.
Even know if if they do make CD players, it's probably like boom boxes, and there's probably
Yeah.
like one that they carry.
Yeah, that's a good point. We should one day like make a point to walk over to electronics and just be like, do they sell a CD player?
I think they have to.
Oh, because
at
they still
least a
sell
personal-
CDs.
Yeah.
So not a huge selection of them though.
No.
No, it's really tiny. But that was the technology that I noticed. What did you notice?
The first thing I noticed was in one of the opening scenes. It wasn't so much an opening scene. I think it was after Robbie got dumped at the altar. He's in his sister's kitchen, and his nephews are watching a small box television, and it's playing a Billy Idol video. So you definitely knew it was 1985,
Oh, yeah.
or at least the 80s.
Yeah.
And then also Glenn had a DeLorean, which was probably the coolest thing that guy had, or
yeah.
anything to do with him, because he was a dick.
Yeah, he was a total... He was, I would imagine, like, people that grew up in the 80s were watching this going, this was the guy that I knew and hated.
Yeah,
he was everything
he was
wrong.
like all of the 80s yuppie cliches.
Yes.
Like, he worked on the stock market. He dressed like he was an extra in Miami Vice.
Yes.
And did I
Even
say that
had-
weird?
No, and he even
sounded
had
weird.
like he had the 5 o'clock shadow, like he was Don Johnson.
Yes.
Yeah. It was very well done.
Yeah. Was there anything else that you noticed as far as technology?
No, the only thing that it was like, and it kind of goes with it, is how they would use the music to kind of set the setting
Right.
more than anything, because there wasn't a ton of technology that was distracting. For a movie set in 1985, we have a CD player and a box TV.
Yeah.
But it's the music that really helps transport you to that time period.
It does. And like you had mentioned in the beginning, before we rewatched the movie, the soundtrack was like a big deal.
Yeah.
To you. And soundtracks to me have always been an amazing playlist of songs.
Yeah.
And sometimes you discover, songs that you'd never realized you would like until you associate it with a movie that you like.
And this movie is kind of great because it came out in 1998, set in 1985, so it was almost like a mixtape from 1985 for you to listen to.
Right.
Whereas almost the only one that I can really think of that still does that is like James Gunn with the Guardians movies.
Yeah.
It's legit a mixtape
And
for you.
I feel like for the longest time, movies did that. They made sure that they had a really good soundtrack. And that's why I always liked like Garden State. I think I almost like the soundtrack more than I like the movie, which I think is another movie we should rewatch because I haven't seen it since I bought it, and that was like 2004, 2005.
I haven't seen it since I came out in theaters, so we should definitely do that.
But the soundtrack, I mean, I still rock the soundtrack occasionally. I mean, The Shins is one of my favorite bands, so...
And there was definitely a time period where, and it's something that kind of died, and I hope maybe with James Gunn it's coming back more, where like soundtracks really, some of them were more iconic than the film.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of gone away, but I feel like maybe they're coming back a little bit.
Possibly. I did want to add a little side category called It's the 80s. And because I just wrote down some like things like Robbie's nephew was running around in a Freddy Krueger mask.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a Dallas reference.
Yes. It's obviously Dallas's most iconic scene is when JR gets shot and they're Robbie's sister's trying to get them to go. They're going out for the night, and he's like,
Her
"Hold
and her
on,
husband.
something just happened. I think JR got shot." And it's just
I think
like,
he might be dead.
I think he might be dead. And it was like literally the most iconic scene in that show. So it was kind of funny that they used that.
I also wanted to mention, as far as music, it's a very small scene, but they're Julia and Robbie are on a double date with he's with her cousin Holly, and then she's with her douchebag fiance, and they're like singing China Girl.
Yeah.
And I'm like, every time I hear that song now, I think of that scene. And it's such a weird thing to think about, but it's just amazing how like music can make you associate certain things.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to move on to our second category?
Absolutely.
Okay, this category is called Kids Would Call It a Throwback. We call it the prime of our teens. And this is where we talk about fashion choices and offensive dated references or anything like that. Obviously, this movie is technically a period piece because it's set in the 80s.
Yes.
So what did you have as far as fashion choices?
I noticed a lot of pastels.
Yes.
Some of my favorites, it was centered around Drew Barrymore's cousin Holly.
Holly, yeah.
Which is Christine Taylor. I noticed she wore a lot when they were like at work. She looked like she was trying to be Madonna,
Yes.
which I know that was like a huge thing. Like people dressed like her.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was the one morning's like rocking neon spandex with like a side ponytail and a sweatband. I was just like, oh, totally 80s.
Like all of the jewelry.
Yeah. Rubber band bracelets and stuff.
The first things I noticed was in the opening scene, it's just showing that Adam Sandler's character, Robbie, is a wedding singer, and he's a very good one. He's very enjoyable to watch, and he interacts with the crowds and stuff. But the bride was wearing a headband, and I just remember like every like 80s movie I can think of, or for some reason I think of like soap operas that my mom used to watch, and whenever there'd be like an iconic wedding, they always wore headbands like that, and that was like a fashion choice. And then I was thinking of what is our generation's fashion choice as far as weddings gonna be, that people are like, I can't believe people thought that was a good idea.
Ooh.
You know?
I'm sure we're gonna look back on some of the stuff of like, but as we know, everything always does come back down
That's
to
true.
We were at Target the other day and they were selling motherfucking Pogs.
Pogs, guys.
Pogs.
And if you're a child of the 90s and you didn't have Pogs, then you must have been living under a rock.
You were definitely, if you ever wonder if you were cool and you didn't have Pogs, guess what? You weren't cool.
You weren't cool. I'm sorry.
We'll answer that question for you. You were not cool.
I texted my brother a picture of them immediately, and if for anybody that wants to find them, they're in Target in the electronics section where they have all the
Pop figures.
and they have like the Stranger Things section and the Harry Potter section. They were like in that. They had like some fanny packs, and then I like grabbed it and I was like, are these Pogs?
Freaking Pogs.
It was amazing.
It was the highlight
Let's
of my
bring
day.
back the Pogs, guys.
Bring them back.
Let's bring them back.
For one summer, and then they'll go away, just like they did for us.
Fun fact, my parents thought about opening up a Pog store.
Really?
Because I remember when we were kids, we went to this Pog store. This guy had opened up in his garage. It was like a side building, and he was doing rather well because it was like at the height of the popularity. And my parents were talking to them, and my parents like really got into this. Like, we've got like a side garage. We can open up a little store. We can do this.
Oh, man.
And I'm so glad they didn't, because
the amount of inventory they would have been stuck with.
Because it phased out so quickly,
Yeah.
I felt like, that I don't know what would have happened to our family.
You guys would have lost everything.
Yeah.
And just had Pogs.
Thanks, Mom and Dad, for not opening a Pog store.
Thank God.
Anyway.
Some of the other like fashion choices was I did see a Relax t-shirt from Frankie Says Relax.
Yes.
Some acid wash jeans.
Oh, I saw Alan Covert's character where they were like the baggy with like the cuff.
Yeah.
And
he was wearing like a real douchey belt with it.
Yeah. It was like he was checking up on Robbie, and I wrote that one down too. And I also wrote at Robbie's wedding to Linda, his fiance, his sister was wearing a peach colored dress, and it looked a lot like my mom's wedding dress from Remember from the Pictures.
Oh yeah. And something that I did note was everybody's rocking these 80s references. Adam Sandler's got big hair.
Yes.
His buddy rocks the Michael Jackson jacket from like Beat It. But Julia, Drew Barrymore's character, is almost like completely absolved of 80s references. Like she, down to her wedding dress, was pretty nice and not
it was
too cheesy.
It was very classically cut, and she just had like a short haircut, and it was like a little wispy.
Yeah.
So, let's get on to our offensive jokes and dated references. What did you have?
There was a ton, because I think they made a ton of references, because like we said, they really didn't have technology. We did have a reference to our current occupant of the White House, Donald Trump, and his first wife, as he likes to call it, 2 wives ago, Ivana.
Yes, which was the joke.
Yeah, because
the person,
at that point he was with Marla Maples, I think.
Yeah, because it was like this lady at a photography studio, and Robbie's helping Julia get a better rate, and she's just like, you guys remind me of... And she named a bunch of couples that obviously are no longer together
definitely
in 1998, but yeah.
It's kind of interesting, though, that like that tells you how relevant... old Mr. Trump has been. He was relevant back in 85. You mentioned the DeLorean and the Miami Vice theme song. One of my favorite, though, is when Julia goes to Robbie's house and his ex, who didn't show up to his wedding, answers the door in a Van Halen t-shirt.
Didn't show up to her wedding.
Didn't show up to her wedding. And then Robbie was like, you need to take off that shirt before the band breaks
Yeah.
up. Which I love that joke, because obviously we all know they break up.
Yeah.
But I was like, Van Halen.
Yeah, it's hilarious. I just wrote down some kind of offensive. Something I'm not more surprised there wasn't more of was like offensive jokes.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking Adam Sandler to me is a little more of a, I don't know, frat boy comedy. So there's like maybe some like masculinity issues but there wasn't really that much in here. The only thing that slightly bothered me, but it was very, very small, was the Alexa Arquette plays George.
George.
That's just her name, who's in Robbie's band. And every time she started her song, which she did a cover of Culture Club's
Do You Really Want to Hurt Me?
Yeah. People gave her dirty looks like when she'd start singing it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that song was popular.
Oh, yeah. No, Culture Club was crazy.
So I'm like, it was a little bit transphobic, but it wasn't, they didn't like try to make her the butt of the jokes. You know, Adam Sandler's character didn't like make reference to anything about her. Yeah. It was just that slight thing. And I'm like, I could understand, because in the beginning she has to redo the song because she only has that one song.
Yeah.
And then Robbie doesn't come back to start his second set. And so she just starts doing it. And so I can understand people being like, oh, we don't want to hear this song again. But it was just something I noticed that seemed a little unnecessary to add.
And I think that would go along with our usual category that we're like, could they get away with it in 2019? Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know that would be acceptable to make a character, but like.
But it was so small though.
Yeah.
So that's why it didn't really like make or break the movie for me. It was just something like that. Yeah, nobody would say anything about unless it was part of the plot.
Yeah.
They were trying to learn something from it. And then also like he makes fun of like the chubby guy at the wedding when he's depressed after being left at the altar. So he's just being a horrible human being.
Yeah.
But other than that, like I thought most of the jokes were funny.
Yeah.
They weren't dated.
Yeah, because, and which again, it's kind of surprising, like, that it's, like, we've called it a period piece, but they really weren't too dated.
No. So. And just for, like, the sake that this actual movie is, 21 years old, the jokes were still really funny.
Yeah.
Every time Adam Sandler had to talk to Glenn, I laughed because he was so sarcastic with him, and yeah, and it was just like a good Adam Sandler delivery. But should we move on to our next category?
Yes, we're gonna go ahead and move on to our well, hello there, where we talk about cameos or famous or recognizable actors that we may have noticed that we had forgotten were in the film. Who did you notice?
The first one I noticed was Christine Taylor, because I totally forgot she was in the movie. I remember her part. I remember but there's people that I forget if they don't make like a lasting impression in my mind. I'm like, I vaguely remember their character, but
yeah,
the only thing I remembered was that she was like a pretty blonde girl that they always made slut references about, or that she was a little easy. So, and I totally forgot it was Christine Taylor. Well, how about one for you?
One for me, which I totally never ever picked up on. You just talked about when Robbie's really mad and he's like going around the room at a wedding, like picking on people, and he calls out the mutants at table 9. And Brian Posehn is one of the people, and we looked it up. It was his first acting role. And for people, Brian Posehn's not a huge actor, but he's a comedian, and he's been in a ton of stuff. So this was actually his first role.
Yeah.
And I don't think he has a speaking line or anything like that.
No, he's just part of the group of mutants. I'm using air quotes. They just all looked like random dudes.
Yeah. Who else did you notice?
There was the guy that was Robbie's brother-in-law. Mm-hmm. And I thought he looked really familiar, and we looked him up, and he was from Goodfellas.
Yeah, Paul.
He's Frank Severo.
Severo.
And he played Frankie. I can't remember. It's something really Italian.
Yeah.
Mobster sounding. And then Kevin Nealon, I forgot. Yeah. He played a bank manager when Robbie's trying to get a job to impress Julia.
He's like, I have a little bit of money. I would like some more. That's where you come in.
How about you? Was there anybody else?
Robert Smigel.
Yes.
Who was one of the SNL writers. I don't think he was ever truly a cast member.
I don't
of
think
SNL,
so.
but he would appear in skits and stuff. He played the chef, and he's rocking the Frankie Says Relax, which then I love the scene where everybody's dancing and everybody's holding each other's butts when they're dancing, and Robert Smigel and Alan Covert are dancing holding each other's butts like that.
Yeah. And then I noticed I totally forgot that Julia's mother was Christina Pickles.
Yes.
Who was in our last movie, Romeo and Juliet.
Yes.
And also plays Ross and Monica's mom on Friends.
That is correct.
And I never knew her name was Christina Pickles until last week when we did
Romeo
and Juliet. I was like, that's her name?
Yeah.
How do I not know this?
I did not know that, because I think I've always just went, yeah, it's Ross and Monica's mom.
Yeah.
That's what I've always known her as.
Should we move on to, or did you have anybody else?
The other one that I noticed was, and I did remember it, but he's in the movie, is Billy Idol.
Yes.
Plays Billy Idol.
He does. And he doesn't look too bad. Obviously, he doesn't look as good. I think they made the mistake of, in the same scene that he was in, as he was on the plane in first class.
Yes.
Somebody's reading a magazine and has a picture of him. Mm-hmm. They shouldn't have done that.
No.
Because then you're like, yeah, that's 1985 Billy Idol, who looks kind of young.
And now you're showing me.
Haggard.
Yeah. 1998 Billy Idol, who's definitely partied a little too hard.
Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, that was pretty much it for me.
Mm-hmm. That's it for me as well.
Okay, let's move on to Is It Even Good, where we talk about the plot and the casting choices, and we name our funniest and cringiest moments or lines in the movie. How was the plot for you?
I thought the plot was fine. It's definitely went in line with, like, a romantic comedy where you know they're going to end up together in the end.
And there's, like, little cliches, like they get into a fight and they don't talk.
Yeah.
You know?
There's that cliche. There's she's with a douchebag and she doesn't know it. But I think, honestly, she knew the whole time she was with a douchebag.
Yes, but I feel like she had pressure from her mom to get married.
He's rich.
Yeah.
That was the thing.
I think that was a thing for the longest time. And it probably is a pressure for some people, maybe of higher, like upper class, to marry somebody well off.
Yeah.
But I always fault romantic comedies for that exact plot line where the nice person, sometimes it's a dude, sometimes it's a woman, like where they are dating a complete douchebag and they don't realize it.
No.
And I guess maybe that's true to life. Sometimes you fall in love and love is blind and you don't see everybody's faults. But I think for the most part, somebody as douchey as Glenn, I feel like you should notice that.
Guess what? You're marrying a total tool.
Yeah. Did you have any other notes about the plot?
Nothing about the plot. Casting choices, I will say, like, this was a movie that I was like, I fell in love with Drew Barrymore, and she, to this day, I've always enjoyed pretty much everything she's ever done, down to most recently Santa Clarita Diet. She's amazing.
R.I.P. Santa Clarita Diet.
Yeah. Screw you, Netflix.
Stupid Netflix.
You douche. But, like, I love her in this movie. She's so likable. And even, like I said, this was kind of the movie that made it where I enjoyed Sandler movies for about the next 10 years of my life.
Yeah. I agree that Drew Barrymore has this, like, a thing about her. She's just so cheerful and happy, and it just makes you happy to watch her.
Yeah.
I agree as far as the casting choices. I did want to make a note that I hated the scene where Holly, her cousin, makes Julia and Robbie kiss.
Yeah.
Because first of all, she's engaged.
She's not kissing some other guy.
And how blind are you, Holly, that you can't see that they have chemistry and that they like each other? And then she doesn't see that they're attracted to each other, even after, like, the amazing kiss where the music swells. And then she's just like, oh, I'm going to date Robbie, I think.
Yeah.
Stupid Holly.
Yeah, she was dumb.
What was your funniest line?
One of my it's right at the beginning of the movie, ironically. It's the first wedding that they show. Robbie's the wedding singer, and he calls up the best man. Best man is Emmy Award-winning actor Stephen Buscemi. That's right, I called him Stephen. And
is it Buscemi or Buscemi?
Buscemi? Buscemi. I don't know.
Buscemi. I think I've always said Buscemi.
All right, well.
But I know who you're talking about, though.
He comes up, and he starts airing his grievances about his family, and mainly at his father. And Robbie kind of saves the day, gets the microphone away from him, and he's trying to like save things. But then Steve Buscemi just grabs a guitar and he starts playing the guitar, and he's like, "Best guitarist in the world, thank you very much, self-taught." And he's like, then he smacks the cymbal on the drums. He's like, "Ooh!" And I don't know why that still cracks me up.
No, I agree. Yeah, I was cracking up on that scene too because it was still hilarious. Because I think that it's almost a cliche to have like a drunk best man at your wedding, but at the same time, probably happens occasionally.
Oh yeah.
Mine was just Petey, Robbie's nephew. When he walks, you know what I'm going to say. When he walks up to Linda, it's after Linda has left Robbie left him at the altar, and she's like, "Hey, Linda, you're a bitch." And it's just, and I don't think, I mean, having little kids say cuss words never gets old to me.
Never. Mm-mm.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Yeah. I remember, and I shouldn't even admit this, but like when our oldest nephew was like 3, I remember like trying to get him to cuss. I would like be like, "Hey Remy, say this." Hey Remy. And he by that point he was smart enough and he knew he shouldn't say these things. Yeah,
it was a bad word.
And I was a terrible uncle, and I was just like, "Say this." And he's like, "No, I can't say that, Uncle Rai." That's
the fun part about being an aunt and uncle is you can do stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's not your kid. Anyway, what was your cringiest line or moment?
My cringiest moment is the entire scene with, and it was a guy, I think, maybe there was a time period where I enjoyed a little bit of his work, but I don't really see the appeal, and he's somehow still relevant, is John Lovitz.
Yeah.
He plays like his competition in the city as the other wedding singer. And just when he's performing his song and he's like grabbing his crotch and he's just so over the top, I was just like, John Lovitz.
I've always liked John Lovitz, and I think it's because his delivery of it's very just almost dry.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me a little bit of like British humor. But I get what you're saying. He is kind of polarizing, I guess.
It's a bit of an acquired taste.
Yeah. My cringiest line, I'll give you 2, but this one won out after it happened. But it's after their double date. Robbie's walking Holly, who's Christine Taylor, up to the house, and she kisses him, and she says "yummy" afterwards. It was just cringy because I know she's supposed to be playing this, I guess, promiscuous girl, and she's trying to be like sexy, but I was just like, gross, don't ever say that again.
Don't just kiss
but the other thing was something Glenn said when Robbie was asking if he was excited to get married to Julie. She's like, "She paid her dues. I owe it to her to get married." And you're like, "Oh, you're the worst."
He was awful.
Did you have any other additional things that you wanted to talk about?
No, I guess the biggest thing is I noticed here, like, we got quite a bit of the Sandler voice just in the movie.
Yeah.
Where he'll break into that, like, "I'm Adam Sandler. I gotta talk like this."
Or like, where he starts off and then he starts yelling. Like, like, that's just like classic Sandler-isms.
Yeah, so that was just like the only other, like, I'm like, memories.
Yeah. The one thing I noted was I felt like Glenn, when they're at the double date and the girls are in the bathroom because Julie is not feeling good, Glenn was telling Robbie all about how he cheats and plans to continue cheating, like he's a villain telling the hero his whole plan for world domination. I was like, you're an idiot.
He's the James Bond villain.
All Robbie had to do was pretend to be a douchebag for 5 seconds, and this guy's like, I can trust this guy. I'm going to tell him all about how I'm going to cheat on my fiance/wife. And then I just like that Robbie takes Holly's word that Julia is marrying Glenn for money instead of just making his own assumption of the girl he likes.
Yeah. And he's gotten to know pretty well.
It's totally a romantic comedy trope, too. It's just like, I feel like I know this girl really well, but this other girl told me something bad about her, so I'm going to believe this girl that I don't really trust.
Yeah.
I hate movies that rely on stuff like that because I'm like, use common sense.
Mm-hmm.
Common sense.
Yes.
Anyway, should we get down to our final thoughts?
Yes, we shall. We're going to go ahead and give out our first of 2 awards.
Yes.
Because, as always, on our podcast,
it's
Always award season. Always. So the first award is the valedictorian to the Nicolas Cage School of Online Bad Acting. What did I read?
You said the valedictorian of Nicolas Cage School of Online Bad Acting.
Okay, let's try that again. The valedictorian to the Nicolas Cage Online School of Bad Acting.
I was like, so I'm confused. Do you just act bad online, or
it's just in a web series where he's bad? Everything else is pretty delightful.
Yes.
Who did you give your award to?
Well, there was two people I could give it out to, but I ended up giving it to Rosie, who is the older little old lady that Robbie is giving voice lessons to for her 50th anniversary. She's played by Ellen Albertini Dow, or Dow, D-O-W, Dow.
Dow.
She's an actress that's been in multiple things, and most notably like Wedding Crashers, Sister Act. There was a couple other movies, and she's, passed away now. The reason I gave it to her was because the first scene in her house, I felt like she was hamming it up. Like she was delivering the lines really weird. Like almost like she didn't want to be there, kind of. Or like overacting. And I get like Adam Sandler movies, sometimes there's situations or over the top things that happen. But it didn't seem like that was appropriate way to act it out.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was just me. But I still found her last scene where when they're at her anniversary party and she breaks out into a rap.
Yeah.
Hilarious, because I found that really hilarious when I was a kid. Because like, haha, an old lady knows about rap. Haha. But it still doesn't erase the first scene for me where she's like giving him the meatballs, which I know that it's still a funny scene, but just the way she delivers it.
I love that when she then grabs his hands
and
he's holding the meatballs. After also when she points at his hands, like, go ahead, give me your hands.
By the way, I was watching this movie with Brian, and he knows mannerisms. This is how he knows this movie, is he knows the mannerisms when they're happening, and then he was quoting the movie so much. It was amazing.
It was. It's a delightful film.
Who was your pick?
I gave it to my good friend, who I've already kind of buried a little bit, Jonathan Lovitz. And it's because I felt like the scene could have been eliminated from the movie. Like, I didn't feel like it was even necessary that they're watching the other wedding singer in town. You know, I was just like, and he's just, like you said, he's polarizing. I think there was a time period where I didn't mind him. I like watching a lot of his old stuff from SNL when he'd be the liar and stuff like that. Yeah. But in this movie, I'm just like, you weren't necessary to me. That's why I gave him my award.
I get it. I felt like I had to give it to a side character because I liked the rest of the cast.
Yeah.
I thought everybody did really well and the acting was really good, so.
I honestly struggled giving out that award. Like, same. I thought there's usually movies where I watch it back and I'm like, oh, you're so cringy. But I like everybody, like his best friend's fun, Drew Barrymore's best friend's fun, like,
right.
Good times.
So I guess we can move on to our better award, the Thomas J. Hanks Award for Exceptional Acting. Who was your pick for this one?
I gave it to Julia Gulia.
Julia Gulia.
I gave it to Drew Barrymore because she's, like you said, like she smiles a ton in the movie, and you're just like, it makes you smile.
Yeah.
But the scene that kind of sealed it for me is where she's crying to her mom about not wanting to marry Glenn. Yeah. And her mom's like, no, you're going to marry him. You'll love him. And she's just like, no, I can't see myself with him. And I want to be Julia Gulia. And I was like I said, this was the movie that kind of, I didn't know really, like, oh, that's the little girl from E.T. Like, I don't think I knew that. So, but going forward, I've always been a fan of hers and am to this day. And
we did look it up, that this was one of her first starring roles in the 90s, like after, she had some issues. And then she was in the opening scene of Scream, which we did cover in one of our episodes, if you want to listen back to it if you haven't heard it.
Archives.
Yes, in the archives.
In the archives.
Of 11 episodes.
Yes. Hey, we're in double digits now.
Yeah, that's true. Congratulations to us. But I agree. there's just something about her that I've always liked. She's cheerful, she's happy, and she has good comedic timing.
Very good comedic timing, yeah.
My pick
yes, who did you give
was
it to?
Adam Sandler.
Oh.
Because I think he, like I had said in the beginning of our podcast, he gets a bad rap now.
Yeah.
He does rely on some mannerisms and some jokes that are very him.
Yeah.
But I think this movie, compared to some of his other movies that I can remember, it's been a while since I've seen some of them, but I think this character had the most heart and the most, I guess, dimensions.
Yeah.
And he played them very well. Like when he was like devastated when he, got left at the altar, and his anger. Obviously, a lot of his characters are angry.
Yeah.
That's definitely a basis of his characters. Happy Gilmore, Billy Madison. Well, I guess Billy Madison's not so much angry as just dumb. Yeah. But I mean, in a lovable way. But I think this one had more dimensions, and I loved all the songs that he wrote.
Yeah.
Like even the one that he sings for Julia after they see John Lovett's character. Like, it's a hilarious song, and it's actually pretty catchy.
Yeah, the Cure song that he said it is, yeah.
And he's a hopeless romantic, and he just plays that well. Also, the last scene where he sings to Julia on the plane, like, still, when I was a kid, I found that super romantic, and it still is romantic. It's not, like, obviously, we've done a couple kind of romantic comedies since starting this podcast, and there's stuff that when I was a kid, I'd see, and I was... that was romantic to me. That's what romance was. This actually is romantic and nice. Like, the song is just nice. It has a nice message about, growing old.
Yeah, it's a very cute moment.
Yeah.
And you do bring up a good point. Like, I don't know when it happened. I think people all of a sudden turned on him.
Yeah.
And soured on him. Like we said, we haven't really seen anything that he's done for Netflix, but... I've always found myself laughing and enjoying his movies, especially growing up. Even, they always had a cute message behind them.
Yes.
So, I don't know. I enjoy his work.
I agree. And I like to remember people for their triumphs instead of their, I guess, not great moments.
Yeah.
I think that's the issue with a lot of people have. Like, yeah, you can remember him for all of his bad movies, but it's kind of like Eddie Murphy. You can remember all his bad movies if you want, but why not remember, like, Beverly Hills Cops or, like...
Yeah, the movies you enjoyed from that person.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
With that being said, should we move on to answering the question, does it hold up?
I think we shall.
Okay, what did you think?
I thought, and I was a little worried. I thought, like, there was going to be some cheeseball, over-the-top moments where I'm like, I don't know that I like him. Didn't get that sense. Like, there was very few moments where I was like, oh, this movie, like, the cringiest thing for me, and I had to struggle to find it, was those John Lovett scenes. I thought it really did hold up quite well, and it was a very good movie.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's definitely comedies that don't age well because they rely too much on either offensive jokes, like at the expense of people that it's not even that funny anymore. Because I know we do live in a very PC culture.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's other ways to be funny than just cutting someone down.
Yeah.
So, and this movie wasn't like that. There was little moments where obviously they cut down on people, but it was like warranted. Yeah. Because the person was a douchebag. Like all of Adam Sandler's lines towards Glenn were hilarious to me because, or even at their engagement party when there's that Glenn's friend. Yeah. He's like, oh, you're the guy that got left at the altar. And he's like, yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Do you want to bring up my parents' death too? Like, yeah. So that was hilarious to me. Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, so I think it definitely held up. And I was hopeful it was going to hold up. And I was
a little scared.
I was a little scared it wasn't. And because I find like a lot of movies from my childhood, I'm like, it kind of walks a fine line. I thought this one really didn't even walk a fine line. I thought it just outright held up. I'm like, almost in hindsight, I was like, man, how did these guys not get like a little award love, like at least from like the Golden Globes and stuff? Because I was like, the songs were funny, and they both, like you said, they have a ton of chemistry. There's a reason that Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore have made 3 two super successful movies. One, I don't know that it was very successful. It might have been, but they made movies together because they are very well likable together.
I feel like nowadays the Golden Globes would, if this movie came out today and it was written just as well, I think the Golden Globes would show it love, because I feel like they've opened up what kind of movies they add. Like, they've been adding superhero movies, you know, but they were still kind of snobby in the 90s. They were still like, well, if it's not written by, you know, if it's
not a Spielberg movie, we don't give it love.
But I think, honestly, for me, not every movie is written to be an Oscar-nominated movie.
No.
Some movies are just there for people to enjoy.
Yes.
And I think this movie is still very enjoyable. It's still hilarious. I was cracking up with a bunch of scenes. And it's not dated to me. I mean, it helps that it dates itself in the sense that it's a 1998 movie written for 1985.
Yeah.
So I think that helps with it, too. Because they couldn't make references. I mean, they are dated references, but they're
made to be dated.
Yeah, exactly. They're not doing it just to be hip. To me, that's really the only time references date a movie, is if you're talking about something that is no longer popular.
And you know what was funny was we were watching the end credits, and that was when I finally went, oh, well, that kind of dates it. And it was because they had the presidents of the United States singing Video Killed the Radio Star. And that's the one thing that dates this movie.
Yeah, that's true.
That's kind of funny.
So I agree. It does hold up. I really enjoyed it. It's still a hilarious movie.
Very fun.
And I would say it's probably one of my favorite Adam Sandler
definitely
movies to date. When I was a kid, definitely Billy Madison was up there, and maybe we could do that.
Yeah.
As
definitely.
an Adam Sandler series.
Ooh.
Of ruining our childhood. But we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Definitely.
So next week we'll come back. I'm going to go ahead and put up a Facebook poll this Tuesday when this episode comes out of some choices, and see if you guys will pick one for us.
Yes.
Because that would be awesome. It's just Facebook at Ruining Our Childhood.
That is correct.
So you just go to facebook.com. Go to the search bar. Search Ruining Our Childhood or at Ruining Our Childhood.
Yes.
And it's facebook.com. FACEBOOK.
But you got to type www.
You
actually don't have to do that.
You don't have to do that.
It's not 1993.
No. But that's it for us today, guys.
Hit us up on social media other than facebook.com. You can hit us up on instagram.com. INSTAGRAM. That's Instagram.
Or if you're just like any other normal person, just open your phone and find the little camera picture and click that.
Click on that. The Facebook one, that one's going to just be an F.
Yeah, and it's blue, I believe.
Yeah, blue and white, yes. And then also we're on the tweets.
The Twitter.
The Twitter. That's going to be the one, it's the icon with a bird.
That's correct. I'm glad you know that. He has no clue what
I don't have Twitter. And it's at ROC Movie Podcast.
Podcast, yeah.
And then, as always, we ask you to please like and subscribe to our podcast.
If you're listening to this on any app that lets you subscribe, or leave a comment, do that for us.
Ooh.
Just let us know what you want.
Yeah.
And if you hate us, also just leave us a comment. I want to know.
Throw it on there. Yeah.
If you hate us, also I want to know why. List specific reasons why you hate us.
And then if you could have references to, specifically reference what you hated.
Like in episode 2, at the 9-minute mark, 20 seconds.
You said Selma Blair sucks.
Yeah.
So reference that specifically. We'll go back. We will find episode 2. Go to the 9-minute mark and we'll be like, you are correct. Selma Blair does suck.
Thank you, Danny.
Yes.
Just kidding.
So, but that should do it for us. And
All
we
right.
will find you guys next week at Ruining Our Childhood.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, we want to talk to you a little bit about the Podcoin app.
Yes! The Podcoin app. It pays you to listen to Ruining Our Childhood as well as your other favorite podcasts. you can use the Podcoin you earn to claim gift cards for some of your favorite stores.
What? Starbucks?
Check.
Amazon?
Correct.
Target.
Acha.
Seriously, guys, this is pretty legit. Join the Podcoin app today on iPhone or Android. And I said join, but I meant download.
You've got to download
and
it.
use code RUINING to get 300 Podcoin just for signing up.
That's 300 Podcoin for using RUINING.
That's how you spell ruining, just in case you don't know that.
Yes.
So if you're basically listening to podcasts all day anyways while you're working or driving or doing anything, might as well make some money off the deal. Am I right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, free coffee for something you're already doing sounds fantastic.
It does sound fantastic.
Take a shot.
So go give the Podcoin app a try today. And also don't forget to listen to Ruining Our Childhood and make some money, guys.
Okay.
Bye.